as an author, you write the book, you want to jam in your research, tell your story to the world. But, then there's this whole notion of how do we make it come alive and stick? You don't want to be just, flash in the pan, it's done. You want to have kind of a runway that continues to grow and expand. And I think the program has been the catalyst to allow that part to happen.
Hi, authors. Welcome to the Book Desserts podcast series. I'm your host, Carrie Dobson. I'm so excited to have you here as we explore the sweet side of author-led groups. This podcast is for you if you're already an author or you have a book in the making. And when you think about the impact that you want to have, yes, you have your book and you want to go beyond your book and you want some of that work that you're going to do out in the world to include groups. I hope you're ready for this tasty exploration of author-led groups. Let's jump into this next episode. Well, everyone, welcome to this episode of the Book Desserts podcast series. I'm excited today. I have another guest. I have Linda Rossetti, the author behind the book, Dancing with Disruption. And she's going to actually talk to you a little bit about her book and the certification program that she created around the book. So first of all, welcome, Linda. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, Carrie, it's an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm so excited to talk about the book, but also about the excellent program that you helped me deliver.
Awesome. Well, why don't you start us off telling us just a little bit about you and the work you do and how you came to write this book?
I am somebody who has spent most of my career, which now is nearing 40 years, in this world of transformation, which sounds kind of funny, but I've always been in a place where companies or organizations are going through radical changes. But in the last 10 years, I've turned my attention to what happens in individuals' lives, particularly in how we respond to what I'll say is a crisis of many, many forms, right? It can be, something personal, something professional. It can be prompted by something that's planned or unplanned, or, a comment by somebody at the supermarket checkout line, right? How it happens is less my interest, but how we respond to moments when, disruption or our world goes upside down is what fascinates me. And I've spent the last 10 years researching and writing about that. And my most recent book is Dancing with Disruption, a new approach to navigating major changes. And it's really a book about setting a new context for understanding what's happening when we feel like, oh my goodness, it feels like the ground fell out from underneath us. And then giving people the tools to navigate, to respond differently, right? In those moments. So it's a labor of love. It's told through stories, both my own, because I've gone through many transitions in my life, but also through the stories of the people who joined me in my research. And they're from all walks of life around the globe. And it was a great honor to do the work and to write the book.
Love it. And, as you said, you tell it through stories, but then you also include the tools and you include great descriptions of the tools, questions that people can ask themselves, and this whole journey that people can go through to reflect on their own. And you have also created a certification program around one of the tools and techniques in the book. Can you tell us a little bit about how you knew you wanted to go down the route of certification programs, and a little bit about the process you went through to know that was what you wanted to do?
Sure. Well, after researching, right, this world, right, I sat with groups of people, leaders, individuals who had gone through major transitions in their careers and in their lives. And two things came out so clearly from the research, right? It was nearly 400 people participated. The patterns were so clear. One is that we really lack the vocabulary and understanding to really say what's happening at those times. And the second is that we had an underdeveloped set of skills to navigate those times. And so many of the skill solutions, if you will, are in the book. And one is important for many reasons. It's an emotional reframing tool called HAIL. And because of how critical it came out in my research and how present it is in the kind of academic and scholarly research in this field, I felt that that was the first tool that would really be attractive to a number of professionals, be that HR professionals, social workers, coaches, physicians, people that are in the medical field, a variety of people, all of whom work with others who are navigating really points of uncertainty and instability in their lives. And so we wanted to get the tool into the hands of those professionals. And it was clear to us that nearly all of those professionals seek continuing education credits to keep their kind of licensing, up to date. And so that was really the first kind of inkling that we said, well, maybe we'll seek accreditation. And we started with the International Coaching Federation for the premier tool, which I said is HAIL, an emotional reframing technique. And so it made sense given the wide variety of people we were appealing to and their consistent need for these continuing education credits. So we really wanted to get the tools into the hands of people that could use it right away. And we thought that that was probably one of the best ways to get some attention onto that.
Yeah, and I remember back to some of our first conversations about this and what you were trying to do. And one of the key parts was to really help these people, whoever you're certifying, to be able to use the tool within the work that they already do. So it was adding to kind of their toolbox, but it was giving them the skills to really use that tool. What was it about the group environment or kind of having a group program that was most appealing to kind of getting people that skill set?
Carrie, I think it's really all about the expertise that you bring to the table that really helped us achieve what we wanted to do in a group setting. So I think, it wasn't just like, oh, let's do it in a group. It's, can we take the value add that you could bring and then make a group setting effective for us? And I have to answer like, yes, with big letters on that, right? Because we wanted the program to be interactive and that isn't like, oh, go over in the corner and write down an answer, but really create an opportunity where people could have peer interactions, learn from one another, test and retest their understanding of the content, and frankly, allow us to observe that they were getting the content. And that kind of multi-level kind of goal, if you will, for the group program was not only, envisioned, but we created curriculum to help us achieve that. And I think, again, that really speaks to the expertise and experience that you brought to the program.
Thank you. I appreciate that. One of the things that I love about kind of taking part in the program with you is seeing people go from kind of that first exposure to the tool all the way to the number of times they do it throughout the program to at the end kind of feeling really good about it and like, okay, this is something I can do. When you think about kind of what's next for them, because as you said, this is only one tool in that book, what are you envisioning and kind of what is the plan for the other programming that might go around your book as a whole?
Well, immediately we've created a community of people who've kind of graduated from the program, but we want them to stay in touch with one another and benefit from the day-to-day ongoing experience that they're having using the tool and share that with one another, right? So the immediate is that, we don't graduate them and say, see you later. We graduate them and we welcome them into a community where we have a monthly conversation, which they can attend live or they can review by tape. And there's real learning that happens at that point. But then there's also a series of additional programmatic solutions that we are designing to help them go beyond their initial learning and go to advanced stages, right? So programming isn't nice and like, here's the box, bow on it, you're done. Programming is this kind of ongoing relationship development tool that allows us to deliver content and skills to a growing number of people who are devoted, thankfully, to this, what is groundbreaking new research that's come out through my work in my book on how to successfully respond to and navigate life's major transition points.
While you kind of finished off your book and you were kind of imagining the work and how you would take this out to the world, what surprises have you encountered along kind of from that place of imagining it to actually having some of these programs out in the world?
I never knew how powerful it is to get a group of people involved in learning, and then how kind of exponential that growth becomes once you kind of welcome people into a group setting and then welcome more and more and more. It isn't like, you and I are speaking, it's you and I are speaking to 10, and then we add 10 more to that. And I think that I didn't really recognize the power of that, like kind of the multiplicative power of that. I also didn't understand how valuable people would find being in a community of learners would be, right? And that is something that was, again, a surprise. I don't think maybe you did, but I didn't anticipate that at the beginning of the program. And we just recently had one of our monthly calls, and one of the women very specifically said, I'm here because of the community. And I think that that's a surprise. That, to me, that's a surprise. I'm not sad. I'm actually delighted that we've been able to create that kind of an environment. But I think it is, as I think of the evolution of the book, as an author, you write the book, you want to jam in your research, tell your story to the world. But, then there's this whole notion of how do we make it come alive and stick? You don't want to be just, flash in the pan, it's done. You want to have kind of a runway that continues to grow and expand. And I think the program has been the catalyst to allow that part to happen.
It's beautiful. And yeah, that ability, not all books create community. And part of that is because the tools and techniques that are in it bring people together, but then you have built the support around it that facilitates that connection that so many people are looking for.
And who knew?
Right? It's awesome. I'm curious, what's one piece of advice you would give to an author who's, either at the end of their book or the book is done when it comes to kind of thinking about group programming or group certifications?
Oh, they have to work with you. I have to say, right? My one piece of advice is take a good long look at the skills that Carrie brings to the table. Because, while I had this kind of pie in the sky idea that I'm going to certify the world on this, Carrie brought it to life, right? In that, there's agenda development, and I want to stay on that, right? Because that itself is such an important part of it. Then you need to develop the curriculum that can stand behind that agenda. And really then it is making the program come alive. And we tested it both in person and online, right? We tested multiple formats with different kind of leaders, right? We had people who were coaches in one, but then in the subsequent, we really mixed it up. We had HR leaders, we had business executives, we had physicians, right? We had all sorts of different people at the table. And so I think all of that, our ability to anticipate or envision an agenda, create a curriculum, and then create a facilitation cadence that would allow all of those people to learn from one another was really, quite extraordinary. And I benefit you and your work with that.
Oh, thank you so much, Linda. I really want to thank you as well for just taking part and sharing your experience with working with me, but also with group certifications around your book. So thank you so much for doing that with me today.
Oh, it's been a great pleasure.
Hopefully that conversation with Linda got you thinking about your own group program when it comes to your book. The action I invite you to take after listening to this episode is sit down and write out who are the groups that you imagine would be interested in the group program that you're thinking about. Who are they? Where are they hanging out? Are they part of a certification or continuing education group that you'd want to think about for certification and getting accredited for? So identifying who the groups are, and also identifying, is there any accreditation body that you might want to connect with or work with to get your group program accredited with them? Well, authors, that concludes this episode of the Book Desserts podcast series. If you're ready to start exploring how to go beyond your book with group programs, I encourage you to visit our website at jjdak.com. That's jjdak.com. On there, you can download our Design Your Groups with Ease workbook, which has some great checklists and questions you can ask yourself when you're thinking about designing your own group. If you're more interested in having a conversation with me, your host, Carrie Dobson, you can go ahead and book a complimentary group program clarity session right there on the website. I'd love to have a conversation with you about your book and about your group that you'd like to put out into the world. Until next time, may your dreams be filled with your own book desserts.